We open with a kid flying in the middle of the room towards the remote control on top of the table. Freeze. This is shot 15 years ago. We can add some camera check so it looks more realistic. It's a lot easier to pull a shot like this nowadays with more powerful computers and better programs. Hi, my name is Ariel Rubalcaba. I'm the director of MDC-TV. In the old days, you had to move to California or New York to become an animator or a special effects supervisor. Nowadays, thanks to Miami-Dade College and the MiaAnimation conference, you can learn the skills to get in the action right here in Miami.
Team MIA.
Dr. Vicente, president of the Wolfson campus, announced one of our new facilities.
We will officially unveil the plans for the future development of the MiaAnimation Gaming International Complex, that from now on better known as MAGIC.
From what I saw, the unveiling of MAGIC here, it looks like this facility is going to be on par with the top-notch facilities around the world.
I've been an animator
During the conference, we had many special guests from the animation industry. Saxton, one of the MiaAnimation members, sat with some of them and talked about their careers and trends happening in the industry.
Hi, my name is David Saxton. I'm here live at the MiaAnimation conference at Miami-Dade College. We are really excited today to have from Disney, Drew Tolman. She works on hit shows there, Phineas and Ferb, and Jake and the Neverland Pirates. If you haven't checked them out, they're great. I personally am a huge Phineas and Ferb fan. We're here to talk to Drew today a little bit about her experiences in the field of animation. Drew, you started out working on huge feature films like
Titan AE.
Titan AE, yes.
Ice Age.
Ice Age, that's a great one. Hop.
Yes.
You worked on Curious George, right?
Yes.
So tell me about some of your experiences working on those big feature films.
Well, David, they're both, some were 2D and some were 3D.
Uh-huh.
And in the animation world, that means a very different crew.
Tell me about that.
In the 2D films, all the artists are drawing traditionally.
Yes.
And in the 3D films, they're creating CG characters,
right,
and animating them on the computer.
Sure.
So first, there's different types of artists, and also there's different, a slightly different pipeline for both.
Talk about that, a different pipeline. So you get the script, you pass it on to the animators. This same character development starts, right?
Well, pre-production is almost identical in that we still have the storyboard artists, the character designers, the animatic editor who puts it together with the music. We still record the talent in the same way.
Got it.
For casting. Casting does the same job. But then once you get to animation, once you're past the animatic, it all changes.
Right.
So if it's 2D traditional, then it goes to 2D animators and cleanup and in-betweeners until color, until final render. And then for 3D animation, you have to model rig the characters and get them ready in the computer.
Does it feel different? The difference between 2D and 3D, is one more frenetic? Is
well,
one...
The studio's a little different because there's a lot more computers in 3D.
Yes.
You need a lot more power.
Okay. And does it feel like it's easier to adjust and edit things in 3D or make changes? Or is it about the same?
It's different.
Right.
It's just different because in 2D, for example, if you want to change the angle, you might have to redraw a background. In 3D, if you want to change the angle of the camera, then you just move the camera within the environment that you've already built.
So you transition from feature films, animated feature films, into television.
Yes.
Now, how is that different?
The schedules.
Yeah.
So the features will take us anywhere from a year to 5 years to make, and from start to finish. And the television schedules are a lot more condensed.
Right.
And you're making many more stories, many more shows. So it's the same pipe this way, but multiplied by however many episodes that you have.
And with Phineas and Ferb, you guys have tons of mini episodes, right? Like your seasons have 40 episodes per season. Is that correct?
It depends on the season that you look
Depends
at.
on the
but
season you
it's,
look at. But it's
a
a
very
lot.
busy show. Yeah.
So you're
Yeah.
constantly in some post-production or aspect of it. You're looking at a script, or you're cleaning something up, or moving on to the next one.
It has been a very busy show for them. Yeah.
Good.
I think what's great about being able to work on a project like Phineas and Ferb and a lot of the other movies that I've been privileged enough to work on is to be part of something that you're proud of, not just for yourself and that your family can be proud of you, but also something where the community is familiar with it. And then it just goes from there. The country and the
it's
world.
been translated
and
into so many
several
languages. It's amazing.
And to be part of something that huge is amazing.
So tell me this, Drew. You've worked mostly on hugely successful projects, but within that, do you feel like you know when you're really hitting something out of the park, or are you so wrapped up in the production that they all sort of feel the same?
A great question. Whenever we're working on the project, we're working so hard at every single step of the production to make it better than it was yesterday. That you're working so hard to make it better that sometimes you do lose track of, are we good, or are we good enough, or are we? But by the time that we're done and we're seeing it, especially at the final mix when you're seeing it put together, I can always tell when we've knocked it out of the park.
Right.
And I've been fortunate enough to work on teams that are just so wildly talented that it happens quite a bit.
That's great.
That feeling, which is nice.
I know for me personally, I loved the Marvel crossover, the superhero crossover you did, and I thought the Star Wars crossover was genius. What other episodes that have been personal favorites of yours?
Those are my top
Could you have excellent taste, Drew?
of my top 3 of Phineas and Ferb, I would say. It's so hard. Sometimes I'm really blown away by the storytelling in Phineas and Ferb.
Yeah.
And the music and the songs that the guys write.
Yes.
Is pretty amazing.
Speaking of networking, a lot of students are here to kind of try to get their break into the animation industry. Is there something you look for when you're hiring someone new, a student? What should they really focus on to be where you are someday?
I really like to encourage students to pick a concentration. So, for example, in art school and animation school, you may learn all aspects of production.
Right.
But there's going to be that assignment or that class that you really rocked at, loved, that you can't stop talking about well after the class is over, that you already had an A and you kept working and stayed up all night.
Right.
That one that really spoke to you, that's the one that you should concentrate all your efforts on and develop a reel or a portfolio for that one area, and then come out and try to get a job in that one area. Because our pipeline isn't that you do everything. You get a job in one area of animation and rock that area. And my advice is always to, pick that one area.
Follow that passion. Great advice, Drew Tolman. Thank you so much for being with us. We'll have more interviews later from the MIA conference in Miami.
Miami-Dade College is a great, great college.
It changed my life. Miami-Dade is really like a family. They really embrace the students. They really have a way of making you feel wanted, making you feel loved, making you feel that you could really do what you desire to do.
I'm very happy that I came to Miami-Dade College North. Wonderful faculty, wonderful advisors. I feel speechless because they're so good at what they do. I feel that students should not give up. They should become someone. They should be in a major that they love.
And Miami-Dade really, has made a huge impact on my life for the better.
I feel that everyone should do that. Everyone should take that extra step and continue their education. Come here to Miami-Dade. Miami-Dade is great.
Hey, I'm here at the MIA Animation Conference at Miami-Dade College, And we are honored to be talking to Carlos Castellanos. He's the creator of Baldo, an internationally syndicated comic strip that is hilarious, and it follows the adventures of a wild teenage guy, and it's a lot of fun. How many countries is it in now, Carlos?
Well, we're mostly in the United States. There are some other countries that carry it right now, but we're in about 250 newspapers nationwide.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
awesome.
So tell me how did it all get started? Like, how did it go from your sketch pad into the newspapers?
Well, it all started when I was about 5. No, I was working with a friend of mine who was an art director in Santa Barbara, and I was a commercial illustrator at the time because I've been freelancing as an illustrator for the last 26, 27 years.
Yeah.
And he was actually a client of mine. And through a period of about 12 months of working together, just on regular assignments and stuff, we started developing a friendship, long distance relationship, you might say.
Before Facebook,
right?
even.
Yeah, before the internet, But yeah, we started doing that, and we started talking about some ideas of things that we wanted to develop, and the Baldo strip came out of that. So we started working on it. We hashed out the storyline, the characters.
Right.
He was in, like I said, in Santa Barbara, California. I was in West Palm Beach, Florida. And through that whole process, it probably took us about a year before we submitted it to the major syndicates. And to that point, we had never even met face to face. It was always just like, it was just crazy. It was just like a phone relationship. So we started there, and we submitted to the main syndicates. We went with Universal Press. We had a few that were interested, and we went with Universal Press, and it got launched in April of 2000. So I think it launched with like 98 papers or clients. At the time, it was Universal Press's 4th largest launch in their 30-year history. So the only strips that beat us out were Calvin and Hobbes, big one, right? For Better or for Worse, and the Boondocks.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how does that go? You're pitching to one of these big syndication companies. Is it like pitching anything? You go in with the strip and the ideas and try to sell them on it? Yeah,
basically, syndicates have their own guidelines, and they're all online on their websites. If anybody's interested in trying to figure out what the requirements are,
right?
But basically, you go on there and you get the guidelines. It's basically like 4 or 6 weeks of dailies, maybe a couple of Sundays, maybe a sheet describing what the concept is and the characters. And that's basically it. When we submitted it, however, it was in the year 2000, actually 99.
Yeah.
And if you remember, it was like right before the 2000 consensus came out, when they were counting the numbers of the minorities and all that kind of stuff, and it showed a huge growth in Hispanic population for the 2000 consensus. And what we did when we presented our material, we also backed up the material of the strips with a lot of information, marketing information, and demographic information about the Hispanic growth, the amount of money that they're spending, and all that kind of stuff. Because we didn't want old editors to look at this and say, there's not a market here for it, because it hasn't been done. I mean, Baldo was the first Latino Hispanic family to ever be syndicated. So we didn't want them to say, there isn't a market here. We wanted to let them know that there was a market here, a huge market. And we supplied them with all the sales material that the sales team needed. So it worked out.
And the Latino market has continued to grow.
Huge.
Yes.
Huge, man. We're everywhere, man. So, give me another 10 minutes and you'll be Latino, dude.
That's right, exactly. You're converting them. So talk about that. Waldo's continued to grow, and you feel like you're responding to that growing Latino trend in the country?
I mean, it's not, Baldo's not your stereotypical Latino family. I mean, we do play off of stereotypes, but we don't rely on them. We don't use it as a crutch. Baldo basically is a Hispanic, or is a family strip that just happens to be a Latino family. And that's really our focus. We weren't out to create a Latino strip for Latino people. It's a comic strip about family. Everything, that we do in Baldo, that's why we have such a large fan base, is because everybody can relate to it. Yes. The family just happens to be Latino. But
Latinos,
it can be,
the gringos.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
That's great. So talk to me a little bit about the change of the way that syndication has worked these days. Newspaper, obviously print is kind of fading. How do you see the market for syndicated strips changing? Where are they going to go?
Well, the market's shifting for sure. I mean, the newspaper industry, as you mentioned, is changing quite a bit. The landscape is different. But, you have a lot of other resources online. And, when we came out, in 2000, for example, the syndication was really the way to go. It's still a good opportunity. It's not like it's dead or anything. It's still viable. But nowadays, creators have such an opportunity to really build their own fan base online, create their own websites, create their own following on Facebook, Twitter, social media, create books and projects like animated projects using Kickstarter, for example. There's so many things available to creatives these days that you don't need that gatekeeper anymore.
Got it.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So we're here today at the Miami International Animation
Having
Conference.
a blast.
Having a blast. Talk to me about what these students might want to be focusing on or thinking about if they wanted to pursue a career like you have a syndicated strip. What do you tell them to focus on in their education?
You know, one of the things I focus on a lot is not just the creative, but the business side. I think more than ever, especially what we were just talking about, where these students have opportunities to create their own opportunity. You know, they don't have to wait for permission for someone to say, okay, you're worthy of being published. You know, everybody can publish their own books. Everybody can develop their own website. Everybody can have their own social media and PR machine. So really, it's learning the business side aside from the creative. Yes, be creative, be original, follow your passion, but also look at the business side. Look at what's available to you and how you can move on that. Because really, right now, it's going to fall on you. You have no excuses anymore not to make something happen and pursue your passion.
Excellent.
Yeah, man.
Great
It's
talking
exciting
to you.
times. Exciting
Thank
times.
you. And we're going to go on a little break now. We'll be back with another interview in a few minutes. Thank you.
And thanks to Miami-Dade College to remember the Cuban experience. I don't think that there is a city in the U.S. that has experienced a transformation because of an exile group in a so massive way has come its way.
Miami-Dade College always gives to the community, and I think there is a large population of Cubans in the community, and to preserve their history, their exile experience, it's almost a duty for us. And so we're very, very proud that we have joined forces with the Miami Herald in order to be able to do this.
It is indeed very educational, and we are very happy to be the host institution for an event of this magnitude here.
I'm so happy that Miami-Dade is doing this because, you know, in a way, people need to know. And I think, I always say, to battle the immigration reform and everything else, we need to show what we've done in the past. Not only me and Gloria, so many people have done it. And I think this is the right way to do it.
Well, my hubby went to Miami-Dade. My sister went to Miami-Dade. I'm a hurricane, what can I tell you? But we love you. Brother School, Miami-Dade. Keep on doing it, baby. You get better and bigger every year, and congratulations.
A world of education and opportunity within reach. You're watching MDC-TV.
Hi, we're here at the MIA Animation Conference at Miami-Dade College, and I'm really excited to be sitting here talking with Michael Berkman.
I'm very excited to be talking to me too.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now, Michael is newly here in Miami Beach to be the creative director for the Fusion Network.
Right.
So we'll get to that in a second, but I want to start talking about your early career. You started in advertising, is that correct?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I actually started, I went to NYU Film, the film school at Tisch School of the Arts. And I always wanted to work in television or movies. I had done a lot of work in high school at a local TV station, and I actually held cue cards at Saturday Night Live while I was in high school, which was an amazing opportunity to kind of see one of the most exciting shows on television, like to really be there that close, even though I wasn't important and no one even knew I was there.
If you didn't
probably
have those cue cards, you would have been really important.
I did it until they found out I was doing it, and then they chased me out. It was the kind of job that I gave myself. But so I went to NYU Film, and I learned the technique and the process of filmmaking, which, you know, everything in the creative arts, whether it's animation or design or filmmaking, there's a craft, and there's equipment you have to learn how to use. There are techniques you have to learn how to use. So going to a school to be able to hone those crafts and learn from others was invaluable for me, and I think invaluable for others. So I got a job in advertising as a producer and learned how to make 30-second cinema, as we like to call it. And you know, it was a great learning experience to work on budgets that were beyond what I would be able to afford to pay for, and work with very talented filmmakers. I mean, I'm talking about real Hollywood filmmakers, and a lot of people don't realize
Name drop for us.
that. Well, I mean, Tony Scott, Ridley Scott, Michael Bay, someone by the name of Howard Zieff that you're too young to know, but if you Google him, you'll see some of the greatest commercials ever made. I did over 20 commercials with that guy alone, and did these Miller Genuine Draft and Miller Lite, Miller High Life, and all kinds of, even Pringles commercials.
Wow.
Which, yeah. We got to eat a lot of them. And so after I lost all that weight, I segued in from advertising into television.
How did that happen? Now, you were directing or producing these commercials with the directors in New York, and then you went to work for...
Well, somebody from MTV Networks MTV had taken over TNN, the Nashville network. And they wanted to...
The Nashville network.
The Nashville network was like CMT, like country music television. There was a Nashville network, and it was all like Southern lifestyles programming, the Grand Ole Opry and stuff like that. And on my interview, they said, "Do you know what TNN is?" And I said, "Oh, I love TNN." And they said, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah, because it's one channel I know I don't have to stop and watch, because I have no interest in it whatsoever." I mean, they had shows like Uncle Dad and things like that. But what happened was they wanted to rebrand it. So they needed somebody, without bringing in a whole cast of characters and staffing up with writers, producers, and designers and animators. They wanted one person who could hire all the different pieces, maybe outside people, and produce them, which is how advertising works.
Right.
You don't have directors on staff. You go out and find the best people, the best editors, and you bring them in. And since that was my background, these people at MTV said, you know, you are the entire network. You just go and like create a whole new look for it and do all this stuff. And I worked for some brilliant people that really knew branding and marketing, and were able to try to make the Nashville network into the national network, which then became, oddly enough, Spike TV. So the early days of Spike, where we said, you know what, we have to change the name, change the logo, and make it into something completely different. And so that was my foray into television, where I then left and got a job with AMC Networks and worked on a bunch of HD channels and did on-air promos for AMC, and worked on the launch of The Walking Dead, and did things with shows that aren't on the air anymore. Not my fault. Maybe it was.
Walking Dead, though, that's an important credit. That's
it was
fantastic.
interesting. Yeah, I got to go down to Georgia, where they were beginning to film, and I interviewed the director and the producer. Frank Darabont was the developer and the director who did Shawshank, which is my favorite film. And so that was cool to get to interview him, and then do behind-the-scenes filming to show what that was like to create a reel for marketing people to try to sell the show, and then lead into what ended up becoming the campaign for the most successful cable show on television.
Wow!
So that was kind of cool. And then I worked in a kids network for a while. I was the creative director for a network that did Saturday morning anime, where they took shows from Japan, like everything from Yu-Gi-Oh! And Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and then they dubbed it into English and took out like the things that aren't cool in the U.S., like heads getting chopped off and blood squirting out of heads, which was good for an adult, but you know, 6-year-old boys would freak out.
Anime is pretty intense. So from television in New York, working on those things, what brought you down to Miami into Fusion?
A plane, but walking was out of the question. Although it's cheaper.
It takes a lot longer.
I did walk to the airport, though, because there were no cabs. No, okay. You really want the answer?
Yes, give me the answer.
All right, so I got a job working in news, and that was weird because I my first job in high school was working at a local cable station doing the nightly news.
Yeah.
And then suddenly I had never done news again. I worked in entertainment and, as I said, advertising and other things. And then all of a sudden, somebody wanted to hire me at a network that didn't do breaking news. It was called Current TV, owned by Al Gore, and it was like very liberal-leaning news analysis and discussion. And they wanted somebody with an entertainment background, not a news background, because they didn't want to look like traditional news. Right. And so I was with them, and then that network was bought out by Al Jazeera. And so Al Jazeera America, and they paid $500 million for the network. So I didn't get any of it.
I was going to say.
These shoes is all I got out of it, which was a weird thing to give you. But they're from Doha, and so they're very good shoes.
Okay.
So I worked for Al Jazeera America, and I was working on building out their launch here in the United States. They were hired like 600 journalists and producers and technicians. So it was a huge hire, and I did a lot of work interviewing people and helping their staff from Al Jazeera English from England, help them to understand the American market and help design the sets that were going to be here, help them with working on the information graphics and the graphics that were going to be on the show, and produce promotions and sizzle tapes that are used to get marketing people to buy commercials on your airtime. All of those kinds of things that were doing that. And I was, and then somebody that I used to work with at AMC Networks reached out to me and said, hey, we're doing the same thing, building a kind of news network in Miami, but this is geared to millennials. And I said, well, okay, millennials don't watch the news on TV. They read it on their smartphone and on their tablets. How are you going to do this? And they said, well, we're trying to figure that out.
That's where you come in.
That's where you come in. And so apparently somebody convinced Univision and ABC to put a lot of money into building this brilliant idea to build a network, a TV network that would appeal to millennials, but be in the space of news and information. And of course, the way you talk to millennials sometimes involves satire and humor, the way Jon Stewart does in The Daily Show. So the head of programming was somebody who came from the comedy world. And so it looked really exciting to me and really interesting. And even though I was very curious to see how Al Jazeera would do in the United States, this opportunity to come to Miami was very exciting. Although I had lived my entire life and my entire career no more than 30 miles from the Empire State Building.
Wow.
So this was a challenge. This was a challenge. And I just said, all right, I'll get a tan. I'll go for a swim. I'll eat some coconuts. I'll learn a little Spanish. This could be really interesting. Yeah, that's about as much as I can speak, which has been a little difficult here in Miami to not speak Spanish well. But I came down here and we started building the network here, and I hired I think 12 or 13 animators and designers, mostly from the local market. Somebody from Atlanta, but everybody else were local, and found a lot of really talented people here. I've attended a lot of portfolio sessions,
like the one
I just
happening right now.
Exactly.
It's great to have something like this right here in Miami that allows you access to the talent that's coming out of the schools these days.
Absolutely, and also I'd like to be able to have our network build a relationship with these schools so that the professors can help us to, almost like a farm club in a baseball team, to show people that are on their way, that maybe are a few months or years from graduation, who show a lot of talent or interest in the area like television graphics, that we can help nurture and give them an internship and have them and come and speak to these classes and show them some of our work and our style, because frankly, the style of animation and artwork that we do, since we're gearing ourselves to 18 to 34-year-olds, is right up the alley of the interest level of a lot of students.
These students right here.
Exactly.
That's great. Thank you so much. I'm
welcome.
looking forward to watching more Fusion. And that wraps us up for today. We'll be back with another show with more interviews from MIA Animation. Thank you.